In this part, let's start from pathogenesis and natural history of type 1 diabetes mellitus. Okay, let's start. In type 1 diabetes mellitus, genetically susceptible host develops autoimmunity against the host's own beta cells. What is happening is susceptible host develops autoimmunity against own beta cells. We all know that. That's why there is destruction of beta cells, and so there is no insulin production. What triggers the autoimmune response is complex and multifactorial. In some patients, this immune-mediated process results in progressive destruction of the beta cells until a critical mass of beta cell is lost and insulin deficiency develops. So till then, it is progressive destruction. Okay, insulin deficiency in turn leads to onset of clinical signs and symptoms of the type 1 diabetes mellitus. We all know that due to this deficiency, there is signs and symptoms of type 1 DM. At the time of diagnosis, if viable beta cells are still present and produce some insulin, there may be a partial remission of the disease. So when the diagnosis is made, if viable beta cells are present, so it can produce some insulin. So there may be partial remission of the disease. That is known as the honeymoon period. But over time, the beta cell mass is destroyed despite any regeneration and or persistence of the beta cell, and the patient becomes totally dependent on the exogenous insulin. Okay, so over time, this beta cells are destroyed, and so the patient becomes totally dependent on insulin for survival. Over time, some of these patients develop secondary complications of the diabetes that appear in the part to be related to how well controlled the diabetes has been. The natural history of the type 1 diabetes mellitus involves some or all of the following stages with two distinct identifiable stages before onset of symptoms. So what is happening is the natural history of type 1 diabetes, it involves the stages there are two identifiable stages before the onset of symptoms. Let's look at that. The persistence of one or more islets or autoantibodies with normoglycemia and pre-symptomatic can last years to decades. That is onset of autoimmune disease. So what is lasting for years to decades is with normoglycemia and pre-symptomatic. Okay. And there are autoantibodies. Beta cell autoimmunity with dysglycemia and pre-symptomatic, that is, this stage is shorter. In this, there is autoimmunity and there is dysglycemia and beta cell autoimmunity and dysglycemia is present. Onset of symptomatic disease usually quite brief, weeks, rarely months. So when the symptomatic disease has started, it is usually quite brief. Okay, transient remission usually within the weeks of the onset may last 6 to 12 months. So that honeymoon period that we talked about, in which there was still some beta cells left, and so they will produce the insulin, and this is the honeymoon period which lasts for 6 to 12 months. And there is established disease which continues lifelong, and there is development of complication which is quite variable. Okay, so this we read about the pathogenesis and the natural history of type 1 diabetes mellitus. Now let's move ahead and read about the initiation of autoimmunity. Genetic susceptibility in this paragraph, what was important was just a term that we should know is honeymoon period, when there is partial remission of the disease, and at the time of diagnosis, there are some viable beta cells still present, so they produce some insulin. This was the only important thing, I think. And the stages, if we want, initially these are antibody normoglycemia, then later there's dysglycemia, then there is symptomatic disease, then honeymoon period, and then established disease, and then complications. Now starting with the initiation of autoimmunity, genetic susceptibility to type 1 diabetes mellitus is determined by several genes, with the largest contribution coming from the variants in the HLA system that we already read, mainly HLA class 2. Nonetheless, even the highest risk haplotypes, most carriers will not develop type 1 diabetes mellitus. In monozygotic twins, the concordance of the development of type 1 diabetes mellitus is reported to be only 30 to 65%. The observed rise in the incidence of type 1 diabetes mellitus, and particularly so in younger children, with an essentially genetically stable patient population, implies that something has accordingly changed in the environment. A number of factors, including the maternal, intrauterine environmental influences, route of the neonatal delivery, food and diet in the infancy, and viral infections, lack of exposure to certain infections and antibiotic use, and host microorganism, and even psychological stress are implicated in the pathogenesis of the type 1 DM. We all read this in the environmental factors, right? These all we read under the environmental factors, but their exact role in the mechanism by which they act or aggravate the autoimmunity remains still uncertain. What is clear is that the marker of autoimmunity are much more prevalent than the clinical type 1 diabetes mellitus, indicating that initiation of the autoimmunity is necessary but not sufficient condition for type 1 DM. Okay, although no conclusive trigger factor has been identified, it seems that in most cases of the type 1 DM that are diagnosed in childhood, the onset of the autoimmunity occurs very early in the life. In most children diagnosed before 10 years of the age, the first signs of autoimmunity appear before the age of 2 years. So, development of autoimmunity is associated with the appearance of several autoantibodies, right? IAAs are usually the first to appear in the young children. IAAs, they are usually the first to appear in young children, followed by the GAD antibody, that is glutamic acid decarboxylase, and later by the IA2, that is islet antigen 2, and the zinc transporter antibodies. This is the order in which they appear, okay? The earliest antibodies are predominantly of the IgG subclass, we all know that, and not only IgG, here only IgG is present, okay? Not only in their spreading of the autoimmunity to more antigens, but there is also epitope spreading within one antigen. Initially, GAR antibodies tend to be against the middle region or the carboxyl terminal region, whereas amino terminal antibodies usually appear late and are less common in children. Let's move ahead. Preclinical autoimmunity with the progressive loss of beta cell function. In nearly all the patients, the appearance of autoimmunity is followed by progressive or eventual destruction of the beta cells. Right? There is a progressive or finally the beta cells are going to be disrupted. We will read this, okay? We will read this, but after reading these paragraphs. Antibodies are marker for the presence of autoimmunity, but the actual damage to the beta cells is primarily T cell mediated. Fine. Antibodies are not the main. They are marker of the autoimmunity, but main beta cells is destroyed by T cell mediated. Histologic analysis of the pancreas from the patients with a recent onset type 1 diabetes mellitus reveals insulinitis with an infiltration of the islets of the Langerhans by the mononuclear cells, including the T and the B lymphocytes, monocytes, macrophages, and the natural killer cells. The process in the human type 1 diabetes mellitus is not necessarily linear, and there may be an undulating downhill course with remission and relapses in the development of type 1 diabetes mellitus. There is even a downhill course, and there is remission and relapses also in the development of type 1 DM, okay? And what we have seen is on the histologic analysis from the pancreas that type 1 diabetes mellitus have insulinitis, that is with an infiltration of the islets of the Langerhans by the mononuclear cells. These are islets of Langerhans which are infiltrated by these mononuclear cells and T and the B lymphocytes, all this, okay? And the process in the human type 1 DM is not necessarily linear. Fine. Like the patient is going to develop type 1 DM in a linear fashion. There may be a downhill course also. Now the next topic is role of antibodies. Even though the type 1 DM does not occur as a direct consequence of the autoantibody formation, the risk of developing clinical disease increases dramatically with an increase in the number of antibodies. Only 15% of the children with one antibody will progress to diabetes in 10 years. But the risk increases to 70% when 2 antibodies are present and 90% when 3 are present. This was something new, okay? If only 15% of the children with one antibody will progress to diabetes in 10 years, but the risk increases to 70% when 2 antibodies are present and 90% when 3 antibodies are present, okay? The risk of progression also varies with the intensity of the antibody response, and those with the higher antibody titers are present are more likely to progress to clinical disease. Fine. Another factor that appears to influence the progression of beta cell damage is the age at which autoimmunity develops. Fine, age also is another factor. Children in whom the IAAs appeared within the first 2 years of life rapidly developed anti-islet cell antibodies and progressed to diabetes more frequently than the children in whom the first antibodies appeared between the age 5 and 8 years. What is happening here is age is also a factor. We read that so in children in whom the IAAs, insulin, these are the insulin antigen antibody, something like that. They appear within the first 2 years of the life, no? Then they will rapidly develop the anti-islet cell antibodies and progress to diabetes more frequently if appeared within first 2 years, and in whom the first antibody appears between the as compared to those in whom 5 to 8 years may if developed the antibodies are developed, then the frequency or the progression will not be as fast as in those who developed the antibodies in the first 2 years. Moving ahead, role of genetic disease in the progression. In large study of the healthy children, the appearance of single antibodies is relatively common and usually transient and does not correlate with the presence of high-risk HLA alleles. Those carrying the high-risk HLA alleles are more likely to develop multiple antibodies and progress to disease. Similarly, the appearance of antibodies is more likely to predict diabetes in those with a family history of diabetes versus those with no family history of type 1 DM. Environmental factors may induce transient autoimmunity in many children, but those with genetic susceptibility are more likely to see progression of autoimmunity and eventual development of diabetes. Okay, so we read that environmental factors may induce the transient autoimmunity, but those with genetic susceptibility are more likely to see progression of autoimmunity and eventual development of diabetes. Okay. Role of the environmental factors. Environmental factors may also act as accelerators of the type 1 diabetes mellitus after the initial appearance of autoimmunity. Starting with now, let's read this again. Environmental factors may also act as accelerators of type 1 diabetes mellitus after the initial appearance of autoimmunity. Okay. This is evident from the fact that the incidence of the type 1 diabetes mellitus can vary several fold between the population that have the same prevalence of autoimmunity. The incidence of the type 1 diabetes mellitus in Finland is almost fourfold higher than in the Lithuania. But the incidence of autoimmunity is similar in both the countries. Okay, so this was just that this means that environmental factors and I forgot. Autoimmunity, yeah, right. Autoimmunity and environmental factors, they both play a role. Not only the autoimmunity is responsible, not only the environmental factors are responsible, both play a major role. The fact that all the children with the evidence of autoimmunity and autoreactive T cells do not progress to diabetes indicates that there are checkpoints at which the autoimmune process can be halted or reversed before it progresses to full-blown diabetes. Like what? Autoimmune process is also being halted. This was something different. That there are certain checkpoints at which the autoimmune process can be halted or even reversed before it progresses to full-blown diabetes. This was something very different and very new. Let's move